Has Trump's much-touted Hormuz blockade turned into a mockery, with Iranian oil still flowing instead of grinding to a halt? After Trump warned Iran's oil wells could explode in 3 days, is Washington now facing another embarrassment as Tehran keeps its energy system running? With analysts saying Iran can still sustain million-barrel-per-day output through refining, storage and workarounds, is U.S. pressure failing to choke off its oil lifeline? As Trump's Arab allies see exports disrupted and infrastructure threatened, are they the ones paying the price for the U.S. blockade as Iran takes oil revenge in the Gulf? Shipping monitors say Iran can sustain its oil output even under Trump's Strait of Hormuz blockade, challenging claims that its industry is close to collapse. On May 5, tracking service Tanker Trackers disputed the idea that Iran's oil sector is nearing shutdown, arguing instead that production can be maintained despite export disruption. The outlet argued that Iran can keep crude output running even if seaborne exports fall sharply or are temporarily halted by the blockade. Analysts note that during Trump's first term, Iran scaled production down to just under 2 million barrels per day when sanctions were at their peak. Much of that volume was absorbed through domestic refining, as Iran diverted crude from export to local refineries and internal consumption. Tanker Trackers and other analysts say Iran could in principle refine the bulk of its current output for domestic use if exports are constrained. They add that exports may not fall sharply if Iran can secure spare tankers and route them around or through the U.S. naval blockade. Even in a worst-case scenario where exports temporarily drop to zero, production could initially hold around 1.8 to 2 million barrels per day by relying on refining and storage. These assessments follow remarks by President Donald Trump, who claimed Iran's oil system could explode within 3 days due to pressure buildup in pipelines under the blockade. Trump said on April 26 that the naval blockade would rapidly force Iran's pipelines and facilities beyond safe limits, triggering failures if Tehran kept pumping at current rates. He also claimed there would be permanent damage to Iran's oil wells if oil flow is not restored. Donald Trump said, and I quote, "What happens is that line explodes from within, both mechanically and in the earth. Something happens where it just explodes, and they say they only have about 3 days left before that happens. And when it explodes, you can never rebuild it the way it is. It's a very powerful thing that takes place sort of having to do with nature." Unquote. According to Trump, the ongoing U.S. blockade would create catastrophic mechanical stress inside Iran's oil infrastructure. He further claimed that this pressure could trigger spontaneous explosions underground and within transport lines. However, energy experts say pipelines are typically equipped with safety valves and sensors designed to halt pumping before such failures spiral. They also note that if oil cannot move through the system, operators usually stop production at the source itself. That is why some experts believe Iran may still have roughly 2 to 3 months of inland storage before any forced production cut becomes necessary. Iran's vice president and head of the Strategic Energy Policy and Management Organization, Ismail Sagab Esfahani, has also reacted. Esfahani warned that Iran would retaliate against countries backing any damage to its oil sector. In a sharp response on X, he said, "Our math is different. 1 oil well equals 4 oil wells." Ismail Sagab Esfahani said, and I quote, "If any part of our infrastructure, including oil wells, is damaged as a result of a blockade, we guarantee that 4 times the damage will be inflicted on the same infrastructure in countries that support the aggressor. Our math is different. 1 oil well equals 4 oil wells." Unquote. Iran's Parliament Speaker Mohammad Bagher Ghalibaf dismissed U.S. claims that pressure on Iran's oil sector would force major change, pushing back strongly on Washington's approach. Ghalibaf also made sarcastic remarks aimed at U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, using sharp language to underline Iran's criticism of the policy. On April 29, Ghalibaf said the U.S. had overestimated the impact a blockade could have on Iran's oil infrastructure, suggesting the strategy would not work as intended. His comments came after Trump said on April 26 that an Iranian oil well would explode in 3 days, a claim that drew a quick response from Tehran. The Speaker of the Iranian Parliament said, and I quote, "3 days in, no well exploded. We could extend to 30 and live stream the well here." That was the kind of junk advice the U.S. admin gets from people like Bessent, who also pushed the blockade. Theory and cranked oil up to $120 plus. Next stop, 140. The issue isn't the theory, it's the mindset. Unquote. Meanwhile, Tensions in the Gulf have escalated further after Iran carried out an attack on the UAE's Fujairah oil depot, according to regional reporting. The strike came after an alleged Iranian drone attack on a crude oil tanker linked to a US-aligned Arab ally, adding to fears over energy security and shipping in the region. Abu Dhabi claimed that a state-linked oil vessel was targeted by Iranian drones while navigating through the Strait of Hormuz. The tanker, reportedly operated by ADNOC, was said to be empty at the time of the incident on May 3. According to the UAE Foreign Ministry, 2 Iranian drones were involved in the strike as the vessel transited the strategic waterway. The UAE has also called for the complete and unconditional reopening of the Strait of Hormuz to ensure uninterrupted maritime movement. Officials in Abu Dhabi accused Iran's naval forces of engaging in coercive tactics and described the actions as a form of maritime piracy. UAE Foreign Ministry said, and I quote, "This attack constitutes a flagrant violation of UN Security Council Resolution 2817, which affirmed the importance of freedom of navigation and rejected the targeting of commercial vessels or the obstruction of international maritime routes." The ministry emphasized that targeting commercial shipping and using the Strait of Hormuz as a tool of economic coercion or blackmail represents acts of piracy by Iran's Revolutionary Guard Corps and constitutes a direct threat to the stability of the region, its peoples, and global energy security. The UAE further stressed the need for Iran to halt these unprovoked attacks, ensure its full commitment to an immediate cessation of all hostilities, and the complete and unconditional reopening of the Strait of Hormuz in order to safeguard regional security and maintain the stability of the global economy and trade. End quote. A senior official from Abu Dhabi also described Iran as a continuing threat to stability across the Middle East. Presidential advisor Anwar Gargash made these remarks following the reported attack on the oil tanker. The advisor said, and I quote, "The Iranian aggression continues unabated, with acts of maritime piracy targeting a national tanker affiliated with ADNOC as it transited the Strait of Hormuz. The UAE stance remains steadfast in rejecting aggression and upholding freedom of navigation in this vital international passage. These attacks underscore that the Iranian threat to the security and stability of the region persists and cannot be ignored." End quote. Meanwhile, authorities in the UAE have issued precautionary alerts urging residents to remain vigilant amid rising tensions. The Interior Ministry reportedly sent out warnings across major cities including Dubai and Sharjah regarding potential missile threats. Residents were advised to seek immediate shelter in the event of any emergency situation. Reports also claimed that Iran launched 4 cruise missiles toward the UAE during the escalation. According to available information, 3 of the missiles were intercepted over territorial waters, while 1 fell into the sea.